It's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills and delights me. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you.
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the Nearness of You podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Noel. Today's episode strikes a familiar chord in current Sasquatch research. More and more, when people new to this field of inquiry decide to simply check out nearby forests, even beside major population centers, they tend to find structures resembling those found all across North America. It rarely takes long to locate such signs of Sasquatch activity if one is persistent and attuned to the right clues, such as symmetry, mixture of horizontal and vertical elements, including large segments of bark, support beams much heavier than would seem logical for what they are called upon to support, enclosures too small for campers and lacking fire pits. Also, many of the main limbs used in structures will have had most of their branches snapped off, and most of the sticks and branches will have been carefully stripped of bark, something that builders of our own species would not be likely to bother doing. Tonight's guests are a delightful power couple, fun to watch, who study the species within just a few miles of metropolitan Los Angeles. They've only been seriously researching for less than a year, but for this very reason, they are a perfect example of how much progress one can make right away.
When you're in my arms and I feel you so close.
Well, hello to my two guests tonight, Tim and Jill. And I'm very glad to have you on this episode of the podcast.
Hello, how is everybody? How's it going?
Good. So what got you started in this whole venture?
You got your typical 70s kid growing up In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. And then just recently, about a year ago, for some reason, I just started looking around on the internet at Bigfoot stuff. And I ran across the Utah Sasquatch YouTube channel, and I started binge watching Rio's videos. And it never really occurred to me that I could go out and look, The Bigfoot researcher seemed like a serious deal. Like, you had to buy a casting kit, and you had to do, And I realized, here's a guy just going out and looking for stuff, and he shows what he does to find stuff. I was like, wow, because we're already hikers. We're already going out a lot hiking, and it was just an easy thing to switch from hiking trails to going off hiking trails and looking for stuff.
I probably just never gave it much thought because I've grown up in Los Angeles and I'm a city gal. But throughout the years, I've grown to spend a hell of a lot more time outdoors, out in the middle of nowhere, in the forest, no fear, hiking up thousands of feet. And then, seriously, about a year ago, starting about February, March, and I didn't realize Tim had this sort of in-depth, sort of secret I don't know, obsession with it. But then we started listening to you, and here's this real guy who's this likable guy. He's like, no, there's frankly some very normal people out there that believe this. So all this hiking we had done, and we just started transitioning into hiking off trail. Now we had a purpose. Now we were going to start going out and searching ourselves. And I think that started probably last summer, once it warmed up in about May or June. And, after kind of following the formulas of what he described, we did start finding stuff. But I must say it took a while. It's like we're new at this. We are now our own researchers and stuff. But with all the time spent, and you start to look at the forest and the wilderness in a whole different way.
you got a fallen tree, but then you've got an upside down tree. Yeah, I guess about 5 or 6 dudes just grabbed that tree and set it on there for no reason at all.
So we found one. Similar architecture, design. We can't quite figure out where the entrance is, but this is all enclosed very nicely.
Yeah, it's got walls,
Yeah.
siding.
Yeah. Wow.
Get all the sticks laid over.
And they're all secured somehow by another stick.
At first, it was really hard when I would find something that I now pretty sure is Sasquatch. I wasn't sure. I was second guessing myself a lot. And I have to say, it's really helped watching all the other people's videos. So especially structure videos and Project Go and See type videos, because I learn a lot from other people's.
And I mean, if they find something in, in Connecticut or whatever, or Pennsylvania that you find, and they're almost identical, it really makes you give more credence to it.
That's the point I'm trying to make. So at first I'm like, well, maybe those were people or hunters or just something like that. But then you start to, the more time you spend out there and the more stuff you see, you really start to be able to tell the difference. Then I started finding all these human-made ones, and they were totally different. The survival structures and the stuff like that, they look totally different. So yeah, so we went to this spot that there's a whole bunch of structures and stuff, and then it was when we had this nighttime encounter. When the first night, I thought maybe there was 3 to 5 individuals surrounding and moving around kind of in a circle, because there was movement that you could hear, some knocking sounds and rock clack sounds and rustling. So, I thought to myself, I don't see 5 deer, going in a circle like that around people for an hour.
So we went back the very next night.
And had the exact same encounter situation at the exact spot. It was amazing at this.
Being circled?
Yeah, in that same spot. So now we go back there like all the time. And we just stand at that spot, and then they'll come in these 2 locations.
Really? So it's very consistent?
Yeah, not every single time.
Not every single time. The rock clacking, to me, when I first heard it, I don't know why, it wasn't a scary thing. So it didn't scare me as much as the vocalization. I thought that was so beautiful.
So we camped there, and then we came back, and there was this, right next to where our tent had been, was this fake fire pit.
And how did you realize that it was not a human fire pit?
Well, it looked like almost very artistic, for one thing. It had a ring of rocks around it.
And balanced in such a way. I don't know, yeah, it did not have a just human flair in it.
No, it was right near where we camped, as if to say, I don't know this for sure, I'm speculating, but as if to say, here's your guys', you camped, but you didn't have a fire pit, so we made you one, No fire there, no evidence of anything ever burning there. We found actually many in the 5 mile radius of that.
Really?
Spot. A lot of them. But we came back another week later, and there was a big structure near where we camped.
Oh, that had not been there before.
Suddenly they just kind of moved into that area.
Wow.
That camping area. That structure was unbelievable. He's caught me on film, we're just looking around, and I couldn't even get the words out.
Yeah, I actually watch hikers walk by these structures and not notice them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so funny. That's so cool.
It looks like a pile of sticks from a distance, kind of, unless you look close, and you might recognize that it doesn't look natural, but they're pretty well hidden sometimes.
have you ever found, like, 'cause sometimes the structure, the major structure, the main structure, you can't 100%, conclude that it's not human. But if you find like subtle little structures around it that humans wouldn't bother to make, you can kind of think, okay, well then that must be, practice ones, or the young ones are making those or something, and it helps to add believability to the Sasquatch interpretation.
Because you could be like, well, this is right next to a human
trail, so how could it not be human?
There's parking lot not that far.
Right. But then if you find subtle but unmistakable small versions of the same kind of thing within like 50, 80 feet, it's hard to believe that people are going to go off and make these little, small echoes, or these minor echoes on the side of the same structure. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I find those I call them art projects.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely see that so much.
Yeah.
But then we started going to other mountain ranges nearby. They're all in Southern California, and finding the exact same. Certain things have a certain
like a certain design, that. This is just sort of how this. If you're thinking it's the same group of them or not, because it would be very easy for them to travel around these mountaintops that we've found activity.
Right, and making their signatures in different places.
It is. They like to use bark, and balance it in such a way. I don't know. The design is crazy, and I just don't see a person doing that. They wouldn't have that flair.
You would think, these kids that are building these things, they really get around, because we find them all over all the mountain ranges.
And this is way off trail, or some of them are just in areas that not everybody's hiking. Although it's not necessarily very far away from people.
Yeah, usually we find this stuff around where people are, which is confusing at first, because you're really like, well, this has got to be made by people because it's near this or that. But
now we've sort of changed our tactics. We're like, let's go out and just where we think no one's going to be. And sure, you might find something that's not as obvious. You'll find prints, or you'll find tree breaks or leans. And then we thought, well, let's go to the areas that
have a lot of people. Or campgrounds
that have a lot of people, and maybe they've been shut down for the winter. I follow my instinct. I just get off the trail, and I just start looking at areas, and I just make a beeline into, right away, within 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, look, there's a structure.
We found the fake fire pits there. Perfect structures that are almost too perfect, and then the messy ones, and then the ones that are kind of caved in. The ones that look like they're about to start a new project, because there'll be just tons of branches kind of stripped of bark.
Oh, yeah. It's the stripping of bark that often is an indicator, because why would people bother to strip all the bark off carefully and,
Oh, yeah, I start looking for the messy areas that looks like a big art project happening, or a big, it's like a garage full of stuff all over the floor and torn twigs and branches. It just looks like littered, and I'm like, that's where we need to go, because they're breaking stuff off and then they're carrying it to someplace nearby.
Isn't that funny? That's so similar to what Leanne Carnegie has found in her area in Ontario. That she'll find, preparatory areas with lots of branches and kind of like staging grounds. And I haven't found that in Vermont, but what I have found that you just reminded me of is that if there's a huge kind of tract of land, and part of it is close to town and part of it is farther from town, if I look all over that area, I'll find the structures close to town, and I won't find any up the hill, hundreds and hundreds of yards up there where it's more safe, and you'd think they would spend time, but they seem to push the structures right up against the boundaries of our own structures, which are houses and buildings and roads and cars.
I don't think it's coincidence that we find the structures near where the people are. It's also a hiding in plain sight sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
because they must be really smart that they know that everybody's going to think that people made them.
Well, that's exactly it. They use the ambiguity involved here. Like, they'll sometimes leave human trinkets.
You mentioned that. We'd always find the obligatory,
Water bottle.
empty plastic water bottle.
Yeah.
Blue wrapper.
Blue. They like blue.
Whether it's a Mylar balloon or just a wrapper that's blue, then they'll put it inside the structure. Just one shiny piece of human garbage,
There's just this kind of token object.
Yes.
And it's a water bottle and the lid's missing. And it's just there, placed nicely.
Yeah. Because they figure just one of these will shift human perception.
So, here we are at our gig. We'll be singing in about 50 minutes, and so we thought we'd go hiking above the amphitheater and see what we could find. And not maybe, 100 yards or so from our last row's area of seating, are we starting to find stuff. And it's funny, the more obvious the structures are is as they get closer to where people are. We did follow this one just straight through and up and just kept finding things along the way. Just follow the structures. But this one's funny because they must like rock music, because at nighttime that's what's going to happen here. So let's get some of the front side and come around this way. There are trails around here, but we got off the trail and just kind of found this going on right here. Clearly trails, but I don't think they're off trail too much around here. This way. And you can hear people just right down there. So I think they come a little closer at night, maybe, it seems like it, and pick up food, trash, whatever, listen to some music. Hopefully that's what it is. Got some stuff in here. These are definitely dragged in from somewhere. I don't want to ruin it. Yeah, and if you just point straight up that way, they made their own trail.
So I was walking along and I saw this. I was like, I don't remember that. I was here a couple days ago. And then I was noticing that it's still green, the branch. So it's just, this just happened. Yeah, it's fresh. But then I was noticing that there are no, that's a pine tree. The pine tree is way over there. Way over there.
Oh, way.
Or right there. So there's some young ones right there. That's a fir. So somebody, something dragged this and set it there. Now here's the funny part. About a month ago or so, I was walking along here. It was dark, and bam! Hit my shin. Killed my shin. So I just think it's funny that I killed my shin right there, and now there's a branch.
Well, Jill and Tim, it has been a delight to have you on. I want to be sure to recommend very highly your YouTube channel, which is Angeli's Sasquatch. And thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.